Hello, everyone. Thank you for connecting today to The Pursuit. We are excited about what God is doing, not only in your life, but all around the world. And as such, as there is a moving, a shifting amongst peoples, it is time for leaders and influencers to step up and truly take their position as people who will help in the shaping of the growth of other individuals that ultimately many might come to know the Lord and truly begin their pursuit of relationship, intimacy with Christ, and ultimately the development of their call, their gifts, their talents that God has placed within their lives. And so today I want to talk to you briefly about the topic, the subject matter of the role of community and accountability in the growth process. This could be also looked at in some ways as discipleship, but there is an absolute role that is played, and it's an integral role. It is a connected role. You can't have one without the other, and you must have each of these ultimately to see proper growth take place, and that's community and healthy accountability. I want to give you scriptures. Start Proverbs chapter 27, verse 17, and the scripture says, "Iron sharpeneth iron, so a man sharpeneth the countenance of his friend." If you've ever had the opportunity to sharpen something, it's amazing. You can go into a lot of kitchens in homes around the world, and it seems like anybody that gets their first home, a couple who gets married, they get one of these oftentimes as a gift, and it's called a knife set. And you'll see on the counter somewhere in the kitchen is this rack or this holder, and within there's steak knives, there's paring knives, there's large knives, there's bread knives, there might be a pair of scissors, but there's another instrument that's within that set that almost seems, for most people, a wasted utensil. And it's the sharpening rod. And it sets in there, and oftentimes people don't take it out. People don't know how to use it. But the whole premise behind that piece of equipment, that tool, is that as those knife edges, the scissor edges become dull over use, you're able then to take that piece of iron and you're able to set it at a certain angle, and you're able to run it across. You press it upon the edge of that blade, and what it does is it resharpens, or it resets the edge, and it makes the tool, in this case the knife, more usable, more efficient, more effective, and it actually brings out its greater potential. And so the point here is this: just like iron sharpens iron, we as people strengthen one another through Christ-centered relationships, through healthy relationships, helping each other grow in character and in faith. So it's important for us to realize that we need to have people around us. We need to have people who can speak into our lives. We even need those people that sometimes it feels like they rub us the wrong way. Have you ever heard that? Well, here's what's usually happening in those moments. We want to be moving in a certain direction, and there are times that people come into our lives, and when they rub us the wrong way, so this is frustrating, et cetera, it could be possible that they've been brought into your life to reset, to resharpen, to reawaken the purpose, the effectiveness, the efficiency in your life. And so we need this in our relationships. Another scripture that I would offer to you is found in the book of Ecclesiastes chapter 4. This would be verses 9 and 10. And it says that two are better than one, for they have a good reward for their labor. It goes on to say that if one would fall, the other would pick them up. And then it gives this warning, says woe or caution to the one who is alone, because when he has fallen, there is not someone there to help pick him up. The point being this: you and I are stronger when we are together. When an individual stumbles, when an individual falls, to have healthy relationships where others are involved, this is community, where others are involved in our lives, someone is there to encourage us, to lift us up, to help us get our feet back under ourselves, to help us get back on the path, to get our vision cleared, to encourage our spirits. They are there to provide the support that we need at that time in our spiritual journey. And so, point number one, remember, the role of community and accountability and growth. These are the first 2 points. Iron sharpens iron, and there is strength when found in unity. I need you to help me reveal or expose my greater potential. I need you in my times of weakness, possibly failure, stumbling, to be able to encourage me, to lift me up, that I might run again. Third point I would give to you, that this role of community and accountability is so needed in spiritual growth, and really in any type of growth, but specifically in spiritual growth, it would be that there is the need for confession and prayer for the process of healing to take place in an individual's life. And so again, another scripture for you, James chapter 5, verse 16, the writer says, confess your faults one to another and pray for one another that you might be healed. And then this somewhat familiar statement that comes out of Scripture, that the effectual, fervent prayer of a righteous man availeth much. The point here being this: accountability requires authenticity, it requires transparency, it requires vulnerability. It's difficult for us as people to want to share our secrets. And I'll just say, we all have secrets. We have things that we really don't want people to know about us. We have things that we might be embarrassed about. We might have things that we have guilt and shame around, that if people were to know, or these areas were to be exposed in our lives, we just don't know how we would see a path forward after those things would be exposed. But the reality is, in every situation in life, it's hard to overcome, it's hard to defeat some of those personal struggles and battles without the strength of someone else in our community. And so as a result, we're not winning the battle by ourselves, and we'll never win it because we've not allowed somebody in to help us with that accountability, with that strength, etc. And so as a result of that, having relationships that promote authenticity, having relationships that promote vulnerability and transparency. And let me just touch this way. we have to be careful with how vulnerable and how transparent we are with some people. I understand that there may be people in your greater community, your leadership circle, your ministry circles, within what we perceive as the family of God, the local congregation, even people within our own biological families, that we sometimes think, well, I'm safe here. And I'd like to say that you should always feel safe in those communities. But the unfortunate reality is people are people. And people, whether they've been redeemed or they're yet to find their way to the cross of Christ and receive redemption, sometimes folks just lose their mind. And you have to have a relationship with an individual that you know you trust. This is why I always say you shouldn't have an inner circle of 20 people, because I'm sorry, you don't have enough relational capital to be able to invest on an intimate level in 20 people to where you know I am safe and I can be authentic, fully transparent, vulnerable, because you haven't proved those relationships. Jesus walked with a crowd. Jesus called 12, but Jesus ultimately had an inner circle, and really you could say that inner circle was 3. Who are the 3 people in your life that you trust? I'm gonna give you 3 people from Scripture that then I would say you can go and study on your own. Maybe at some point in another podcast I might talk about these 3 individuals, but these are 3 individuals that every person should have in their life. An individual represented as the Apostle Paul. Who is the Paul in your life? This is the individual who's a mentor in your life, somebody that you aspire to follow, maybe be like. So who's the Paul in your life? This is the master, so to speak, the one who has had the experience, the learning, who's already done and been where you're going, and so you're looking to them for leadership. Everybody needs to have a Timothy in their life. Timothy in the Scripture represents a disciple, and Timothy looked to Paul for encouragement, for leadership. So there are times that you and I will fill the role of a Paul. We should anyway. There are times we will fill the role of a Timothy. We should always. This is the position of growing, but we want to be investing in somebody, watching them grow. And then thirdly, the last one that you need to have in your life, and someone you should aspire to be in the lives of others, is a Barnabas. And I'll talk about his role in just a minute. But these are the 3. This is the inner circle of your life. This is what you got to have, because it's found within this that we can be open, we can find accountability, we can find strength, we can expose the secrets of our lives, thereby then calling things into the light, defeating them, and being able to walk forward in a greater measure of victory. And so accountability requires vulnerability. If I am truly going to be accountable, I have to be able to trust somebody that I can then be vulnerable with, thereby exposing my weak areas and ultimately finding strength. So by confessing and praying together, we experience healing and spiritual growth as a community. So what is happening within that community of your life? Point 4, and this would speak to encouragement and exhortation. Scripture is this, Hebrews chapter 10, and let us consider one another to provoke unto love and to good works, not forsaking the assembling of ourselves together as the manner of some is, but exhorting one another, and so much the more as you see the day approaching. That's Hebrews chapter 10, 24 and 25. The point being here is community, or gathering together, fellowship together, relationship time together. When we gather together, this provides opportunities for us as individuals, our community, to then be able to encourage one another, to stir up love, faith, and provoke us to action in our walk with God as we're looking to pursue those things that are resident within us, those talents, those resources that God has placed within us specifically for a specific time, which is to serve our generation with excellence. And so point 4 is we must be found within a community that provides encouragement and exhortation, this provoking us ever forward. The 5th point, and really this would be the last point in talking about the role of community and accountability within the greater context of growth, and it would be this: it's the concept, the scriptural concept of bearing one another's burdens. Galatians chapter 6, the Apostle Paul is reminding or challenging the people of that local assembly to bear one another's burdens, and in doing so, they fulfill the law of Christ. So the point here is fulfilling the law of Christ as it pertains to that of love means bearing one another's burdens, supporting each other in times of need, and ultimately demonstrating true Christian community. So very important as we're looking for a healthy environment in which an individual is going to grow. So these 5 principles: strengthening, supporting, confessing, encouraging, and bearing each other's burdens, are essential for growth and accountability in our walk with God. And so as people, you and I, we must be willing to commit ourselves to living these out in fellowship together. I want to be the type of person that these 5 principles are evident in my life. They're evident in the communities in which I find myself, that ultimately, as I am growing, as I am being challenged, those that are around me, those that are connected to me, those that are within my community are also growing as they pursue Christ and the development, the exposure of the talents, the gifts, and ultimately that potential God has placed within them. If I were to, just sitting here thinking as I'm getting ready to wrap up, if I were to give you one last principle. So I always say that there's 5 of these principles, but really there's probably many, many more. We could make a very long list. But there's one that I touched on just a little bit, and I suppose it almost bears its own point. And so if I were to give you a 6th point, it would be to reach back to that Barnabas concept that I was giving you. And if I were to call it something, I would say it would be the principle of the encouragement of Barnabas. We'll go with something like that. But Barnabas's example as an encourager, and if you look at what his name means in the original text, it is the encourager. And so Barnabas's example reminds us that this encouragement is essential in any community. You have to have people who are motivators. You have to have people who inspire. You have to have people who hold you accountable. You have to have people who may, so to speak, kick you in the pants to get you moving. But we have to have somebody who is going to be the cheerleader, the encourager, as it builds up the faith of other people and it creates an atmosphere where ultimately growth and then thereby accountability, where that can thrive within that relationship. And so the point is this, and I think if you went and read Acts chapter 11, verse, I don't know, we'll just say 20 through maybe 24, 23, something like that. You're gonna find some things about Barnabas. But by being this individual within a community, within relationship, his example exemplifies the power of a supportive community member. Not everybody's called to a pulpit ministry. Not everybody's called to be the apostle, right? The prophet. But we are all called, and we all have the ability to be an encourager. And so when we look at growth, we know we must have within growth, you have to have accountability, you have to have community, and I would say that third leg of the stool, so to speak, a three-legged stool, would be that role of the encourager. Remember, Barnabas challenged and encouraged the people of God to stay committed to the Lord. No matter how rough things looked, he continued to encourage the church in Antioch to move forward, to do right things, to stay faithful. And as a result of that, as a result of his encouragement, the church in Antioch flourished. And God did great and mighty things in their midst. So, in closing today, 3 roles that we need in our lives, 3 roles that we also can fill in the community in which we find ourselves, that of a Paul, that of a Timothy, and certainly that of a Barnabas. If we are going to have growth, we must have accountability, we must have community, and we must have someone that is encouraging. God bless you. We look forward to connecting with you the next time right here on The Pursuit. Remember, never stop pursuing. This is a marathon. Continue to press forward. And I pray that God will continue to reveal that greater potential within your life as you draw nearer to Him. God bless you, and we'll see you next time.